You're watching the PoliticIt podcast.
Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. We're here with Mike Carey tonight, and great to have you, Mike.
Thanks for having me on.
New election. I mean, you're the county party chair, Salt Lake County party chair.
Yeah, I'll never learn.
Yeah, that's something. Of course, Chris Null didn't run against you, right? Because he turned out.
He turned out, yes. And so Chris did a great job. You know, the last 4 years. And let me take a step back. I wasn't really involved in 2020 county party politics. It wasn't until 22 with the Mike Lee race that I really really kind of got involved and showed an interest in just how it all works. And so I don't have any frame of reference from before 22, but from what I've heard is that Chris and the outgoing officers, the last set of officers did a heck of a job really pulling a party out of a ditch from just a functional standpoint, you know, in terms of party data, you know, organizing events, communicating with party membership, you know, finding candidates to run in races where no Republican had filed. So if Chris pulled it out of the ditch and got it into, you know, let's say first gear and got it running,
right.
We're, you know, the new team, myself and Sarah Montez, my vice chair, Carl Jurek, my treasurer, and Emily Swanson, the secretary, you know, we've got a great foundation to work with that Chris and the outgoing team did a heck of a job pulling together to really move it to the next level and really amplify the impact the party can have in Salt Lake County.
Right. Yeah. Hey, let's go back just a little bit, just so people, you've been on my podcast before, but it's been a while.
Sure.
So let's go back and talk about you just a little bit.
Okay.
You know, tell our audience a little bit about you, what you do for work, where you went to school.
The short version is born and raised in Jersey. You know, don't hold it against
Jersey
me.
boy.
I know good Italian food, and I'm a woeful New York Giants fan.
Oh, you are.
Yeah. Well, hey, we've got Jackson Dart, hometown kid now.
Yeah, isn't that something?
So we'll see.
Yeah, see, I taught at Ole Miss for a while. So
yeah, my daughter's just finished sophomore year.
Oh,
So,
is she?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
What made her decide to go there?
We did tours of. Listen, the SEC. I'm going to let the secret out. The SEC is one of the best organizations. Those schools are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're affordable. My kids, I wanted them to go out and kind of meet people from other parts of the country.
Right.
And so, and you know, and we had been smart with planning for their college education, and they have ground rules they have to stick to, and certain metrics they have to meet, or else I turn the spigot off. And but she chose to go to Ole Miss. It was either going to be Ole Miss or LSU.
Oh.
And so LSU would have been if she decided to go interior design, but I think she heard her old man talk about you know, real estate and construction long enough, and so she's in the business school at Ole Miss, and next year she should be studying with a concentration on real estate development.
Oh, that's actually a good program. In fact, one of my business partners actually started it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but he's retired now. But,
okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. In fact, two of them were real estate professors.
Okay.
There, so
yeah, I mean, Oxford's a great town.
Yeah.
And you know, from our previous conversations, and it's safe, and my daughter gets to experience everything that, you know, she's in the Greek life out there, which is a tremendous network for.
So which sorority is she?
Alpha Chi Omega, I think it is. So a relatively new one. Yeah, the Greek life at a SEC school is a whole different thing.
Yeah, those houses or something, aren't they?
Gosh, it's wild.
So you went out there with her?
Yeah, we did the tours a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So and you know, she had to figure out how to be a student. She was one of those COVID kids, like, you know, the last 2 years of high school.
Oh, that's right.
She didn't have to do homework. There was like virtually no accountability. Yeah. You know, as a parent, I was like, what is this? Like, everything's optional. Deadlines are soft. It doesn't work.
Did you go to school in Jersey?
No, I went to school in Western New York. I got a mechanical engineering degree from a small school named Alfred University, which is about an hour and 20 minutes southwest of Palmyra, which most people in Utah know where that is.
Right, yeah.
You know, great experience, very small private school. But it's one of those schools that, you know, the discount rate is nearly 80%. and I'm a trustee there now. I have been a trustee for 9 years, and but without Alfred, I wouldn't have gotten a college education. We pride ourselves on giving opportunities to first generation college students.
And you were first gen?
Absolutely. My mom was a travel agent making $14,000 a year when I went to college in 1993. Wow. Single.
That's amazing.
So
tell us how you ended up in Utah.
So everyone knows I moved out here to build the NSA's data center, and so yes, I'm that guy, one of many. But we didn't, it was before the whole Snowden thing happened. But we had been in DC, the DC area, for about 11 years after I graduated college, and what I noticed in DC was, in the post 9/11 era, was the tremendous growth of the federal government and everyone attached to that. And as a builder, because I've been in construction management for 25 years, as a builder, you're kind of living in this alternate ecosystem.
Right.
But even though we did a lot of federal work, we built a lot of federal projects. You weren't involved with like policy or anything like that. And I just found, my wife and I found ourselves very frustrated at just constantly being surrounded by policy talk and political talk, and we were kind of like, it's time to get out of here. And she was pregnant with our third kid, and we were going to outgrow our house, and the DC real estate market had gone bananas in the 2000s because
and you got to Utah before, really.
I got to Utah. We bought our house in fall of 2010. We got a screaming deal.
Yeah.
And so
you sold at the right time for DC.
Well, DC was flat. Okay, DC was not affected at all by the recession when it comes to home values.
Right.
So what's that tell you about the economy there, the local economy?
Yeah.
It's all driven by federal government. And so I think I was onto something when it was time to get out. So we got out, not for the,
Yeah, because I understand now there's probably diving prices, right?
I just had a conversation with someone back east who lives in the DC area, and a third of his neighborhood's been laid off due to the federal budget cuts.
Wow.
And a lot of the trickle down of money through the NGO community has really come to a screeching halt.
Right.
So
you come to Utah.
Was
that a little bit nerve-wracking to?
The running joke of my campaign for county council last year was we knew two things about Utah before we came out here. We knew about the Jazz, and my wife was a big fan of Big Love, the TV show on HBO.
Oh my goodness.
That's about all we knew, and it had good skiing, I guess. So 3 things, and we flew out here, and I'll never forget looking out the right window of the plane with our little 5-month-old on my wife's lap, and looking at Mount Timpanogos and saying to myself, these are real mountains.
Yeah.
And so we landed. We looked.
So had you not been here before?
I'd never been here before.
Oh wow.
I had heard, everyone heard of Sundance and you'd heard of Park City, but I had no idea. I had no like firsthand concept of what the culture was like, what the layout, the demographics and all the different little areas of northern Utah. And so we, but we found a place in Cottonwood Heights, and we've been there ever since. I've been fixing it ever since.
Oh, have you?
Well, it's an older house, but we do projects.
That's a pretty nice area, though, isn't it?
It is. It's great. I joke often. It's kind of like the firewall for conservatism in Salt Lake County is right around the 215 mark on the East Bench. You've got Sandy and Draper south of us, which is pretty conservative. The west side is pretty conservative, even though it's wide variety of demographics on the west side.
So which House district is that? Do you know?
They changed the numbers, and I still screw up. Steve Eliason is our rep,
okay,
and Senator Kirk Cullimore.
Yeah, I figured Cullimore probably was.
Yeah. So, but we're right off Creek Road in Highland, in that neck of the woods, and it's great, and we've had a really wonderful experience ever since we moved here in that area.
Hey, we're going to take a break.
Sure.
We'll come right back.
All right, great.
Tired of media bias? Frustrated by political noise? PoliticIt.com cuts through the clutter, giving you real facts, clear analysis, and unbiased insight on the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay empowered. Whether it's elections, policy changes, or breaking news, we've got you covered. No spin, no agendas, just truth you can trust. Visit PoliticIt.com today, because informed citizens shape the future. PoliticIt.com, where politics meets clarity.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We're here with Mike Carey, Salt Lake County GOP Party Chair.
Party Chair, yes.
Nice. So we had started talking about these races that are coming up. I mean, and they're coming up pretty quickly.
So we have a special election for State School Board 7. So Molly Hart
is now the superintendent, right? So her school board seat is up.
Is open, and the way the law says that, or the governing code for special elections in state school board races stipulates that the state central committee for the party, if it's a
Republican, then
if you're replacing a partisan, a member of a qualified political party, in which case Molly is a Republican, the state central committee for that party will nominate 3 candidates to the governor. The governor will then pick one, who is then sent over to the Senate to be ratified. And I believe it only finishes out until the next election. So she doesn't. Whoever takes that seat would not fulfill the remainder of Molly's 3 years.
Who just got reelected.
Right,
and that's a 4-year term, right?
Yeah. So this person would be serving until next.
Is it 4 years or is it?
It's a 4-year term.
It's a 4-year term.
Yeah. So this person would serve through the end of 2026. Okay. If they want to run again, they'd be running again, even though that would take the seat formerly occupied by Molly from 4 years to 2 years. It kind of offsets the cycle a little bit. So we have the party, the county party is working with the state party. We had a conference call last night with Rob Axon and a couple folks from that team. We got some things rolling out over the next few days, specific for that election. We're looking at a questionnaire for delegates within the State School Board 7 boundary, just to see what's, so that the rest of the state central.
So has that already opened up so people can apply, or what's going on with that?
It's opening up this weekend.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, and the registration will be through the state party website to declare.
Okay.
So. And then we have a state central committee meeting on the 21st where the election will take place.
So that'll actually just be run totally by the party then, right?
Yeah, correct. That'll be run by the party. I don't know what happens after we send the 3 up to the governor's office. I can't imagine it would take very long to get that seat filled. But what's important, first of all, I live in District 7 for the state school board. What's important is we got to get this done on the 21st, because otherwise myself and everybody else in the pretty much the Canyon School District will not have representation on the state school board throughout the summer, because the next state central committee meeting would not be for another 3 months.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is
We're
going to
moving
happen.
fast.
This will happen pretty fast.
We're moving fast. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've got municipal elections too, right?
Yes. So those are nonpartisan, but obviously, the Republican Party in Salt Lake County has the largest membership of registered Republicans of any of the parties in the county. We have a huge unaffiliated or independent or third party, but Democrats I think are 14 to 17%, somewhere like that.
Oh, really?
And the Republican Party is just below 50%. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it's roughly 250,000 Republicans registered in Salt Lake County. And so for these municipal races, even though they're not partisan races, a lot of Republicans, we obviously want to see conservatives elected to city councils, and mayor races. So we'll be rolling out a program over the next week that, early next week, to remind people that, I believe the filing deadline for the municipal races is next Friday. And then we'll be providing also a questionnaire for all registered Republicans who are running for those nonpartisan races, that if they would like the party's support, there's a vehicle for us to support them, whether it's through volunteers, communications. It doesn't mean that we're coming out and putting the GOP banner, across the top of their race and making it partisan. No, it's just we're going to provide the logistical support and the horsepower to help them.
That's very good. So you see that. What do you see as your role as the county party chair?
I'm taking a very project management mindset that I've, running these massive $1 billion plus projects that I've run in my career. Even though they're construction projects, they all involve huge teams, okay? And what I saw last year as a candidate was not we have a tremendous amount of volunteers and we had a ton of organization. But one thing, the Achilles heel to the entire operation, in my opinion, which is why I ran for party chair, we lost some really close countywide races last year, and we shouldn't have. Okay, and why is
now one of them was the race that you were
that I lost.
Right.
I didn't make it through the primary, but I thought Rochelle was gonna win that race, and she didn't. We have a turnout problem, and I attribute that to a communications problem. So I'm working with let me explain why I think we have a communications problem. As a countywide candidate last year, you already heard me say 250,000 roughly registered Republicans. I only had 96,000 good emails. So I'm talking to less than 40% of the party on email. I got maybe another 3%, 4% on the cell phones. Okay? So if I'm not even talking to half the party, I'm relying on them to go get the information about the candidates on their own.
Right.
And we all have busy lives, okay? I'm not saying that we need to rely on one or every form of communication, but we issue a lot of important communication, and candidates rely on getting that word out so that people know when they're going to have town halls, when they're going to have meet and greets, when they're having cottage meetings in their neighborhood, or where they're going to be, and you can just come grill them with your questions.
Right.
And so, and what we want people to do, and what I want people to see is that, and Salt Lake County is very unique for the state. Okay. The support for President Trump, for example, in Salt Lake County is the lowest among, percentage-wise, amongst all Republicans in the rest of the state. Frankly, I don't care why, okay? It doesn't matter, because my role in the county party race is, as chair of the party, county party chair, is to make sure we're getting reliable conservatives elected either through the convention, the caucus convention process, or through the primary if they're not outright winners at the convention, and making sure they get elected in the fall, in November. Okay, it's got nothing to do with what's happening on the national level, on cable news, on social media.
So one piece of that, of course, is getting the right people to run, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I've had last year as a candidate, I had a lot of doors slammed in my face because, you're a Republican. I'm a Republican, but not Trump Republican. I'm like, what's that got to do with the DA's race?
Right.
Okay, what does that have to do with, school boards?
Right.
Okay, what does that have to do with the county council? We have a $2 billion budget, okay, in Salt Lake County. For what, I have no idea. Okay?
Right.
I know I'm being I'm being facetious, obviously.
Well, especially, there's a county where the city's really
we're going to have
control a lot, right? Yeah. Why is the county budget growing when the unincorporated areas are shrinking?
Well, and by law, they're all going to be gone in 2027. Okay, that was passed a year or two ago. So, I think it was 2 years ago. So all the remaining unincorporated islands within the population center, or within the populated areas of Salt Lake County, go away. So, I think we've kind of, personally, I think we've kind of come full circle on the role of county government. I'm really hoping that we get some great candidates to run in 26, and again for the next mayor's race in 28. Which hopefully, if I do a good job, I'm still the chair. That we can be smart about what we do
right
in those local races.
So the other item that we kind of wanted to touch on is housing's a big deal.
Yes.
So what's going on with housing? I mean, that's got to be something that's at the top of the list for a lot of Republicans, right?
Yeah, and there are two opinions within the party right now. One is we've got to build more starter homes, okay, and I understand the rationale for that argument. And there's another, and in order to do that, we need town planning boards and city councils to get on board with densification. I've been in this business for 25 years. I've also lived in two other areas that went through that type of proposed solution to solve their housing woes. It was in Maryland from 2000 to 2011, same thing. Let's densify, it didn't work. Okay, I grew up with it in New Jersey.
Right.
If you've ever been to either one of those places, you can see that Salt Lake County is starting to look like those
Yeah.
metroplex areas. I call it a metroplex because it's got a city and then everything sprawls from there.
Right.
And they're trying to create these transit-oriented hubs, and I get the logic there, okay? But at the end of the day, a lot of the argument in support of that is based upon stale data. And I'm an engineer, I got to look at the data.
Right.
Okay? And when you look at the data that's actually out there from the last 2.5 years, you can see that we actually over 44% more homes on the market as of April 2025 than we had in April 2024. Okay, statewide, the last numbers I looked at in mid-April in detail, statewide we had 13,000 homes for sale. The data that was used to inform these policy decisions that we've been hearing for years are pointing to the lowest of the low during the COVID gold rush when everyone moved to Utah, and we had less than 1,000 homes for sale in the whole state. So property values are greatly overpriced.
Well, and so Salt Lake County is pretty landlocked. So the reality of it is, with affordable housing, the only way to solve that problem is with density, because the property's so valuable that a single family house put on that property is not affordable.
But the data that was used to inform the policy decisions that we've been hearing about for 2 years kind of assume this continuous growth. And what the reality is if you look at the same data sets that were used to inform those policies, it's been flat or even declining over the last 2.5 years.
In Salt Lake County?
The whole state.
Oh, statewide?
The whole state, yeah. But the median home price in Utah is roughly $80,000 lower than it was 2 years ago.
Wow.
But we don't hear about that because we only see the end point of that curve. We don't see that it eventually tapers off. And if you look, median home price is almost where it would have been had you continued the same line from pre-COVID, okay, which was still too expensive. The rate of increase was too much. We were looking at 8 or 9% a year inflation or escalation.
During COVID, we had a big spike in,
because
people coming in, right?
You had massive in-migration from other states, especially states that where the median home price or median household income or the median income is significantly higher than the average wages of Utahns or average median household income of Utah.
Right.
Utah households just crossed $100,000 median household income 2 years ago. All right, so if you're coming from someplace like California where you need to make a lot of money in order to even have basic living accommodations in say, Silicon Valley or the Bay Area, okay, you come out here and you're like, man, I got a lot of options.
Yeah.
And that's where the bidding wars happened. And so I argue personally, not as the chair, but that we need to let the market cool a little bit, and all signs indicate that that's been happening. Okay, and let it return to equilibrium without constantly trying to play with the knobs and the dials and move things around. It's happening. We have robust inventory. Okay, what's missing right now, and this is where I agree with the governor, is we're missing starter homes. Okay, but densification by going to very small homes, 1,000 to 1,100 square foot homes on 5,000 square foot lots or 6,000 square foot lots. I'd be happy to take anybody in state government for a drive from Maryland to New Jersey and show them why that is not the solution. Because the long-term ramifications are not in the best interest of Utah.
Yeah. Interesting. I think that's something, it's certainly something we have to look at, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're about out of time, but what do you see as your major efforts in terms of the party now?
Our focus for the remainder of 2025 is really two primary objectives. One, we've got the municipal races, and anybody who wants our help that's a registered Republican and or that we can find that is thinking about running for a municipal seat, whether it's mayor, city council, we are here to help them and help them get organized so they don't have to figure it out on themselves. You got a bunch of people that have run for office that are involved with the party. Why not leverage that experience, even whether they've won or lost? Leverage that experience to help them, get off on the right foot, so they're not trying to figure it. They're not going to Google and figuring it out for themselves. All right, so that's one primary thing. The second primary thing is we've got to increase our communication with the party membership so that we can get them excited for next year. I would argue that if we can increase voter turnout among conservatives, just conservatives, 5 to 7%, on the west side and the southeast corner of Salt Lake County will win most countywide races. And next year we've got the auditor race, and I think Chris is running again, Chris Harden. He's done a great job. We got the sheriff's race next year, and I believe that's open seat. We've got 3 county council races. One is an at-large race, and then we've got the DA's race, which, you know, there's not a lot of people that would argue that, you know, that's probably the most important race in the state next year, because if we want to get our act together in Salt Lake County, especially in Salt Lake City, you know, it starts there.
Very good. Well, we're out of time. Thanks for coming on, Mike. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
We'll see you guys next week.